WCLN 1170 Radio and Star Communications Channel 16 proudly present the We Should Know Show, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative. Now, here's your host, J.W. Simmons, as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on the air. I'm J.W. Simmons, your host. It's my pleasure to be here each and every week and bring you a new subject, a person that can talk about that has expertise in the background. One of those particular subjects that's critically important is something called dementia. And dementia is part of our lives, whether you have been inflicted with it, been part of it, witnessed it. It is something that is continuing to grow. And Angela Faircloth, thank you for being with us. You've been in the Department of Aging now for over 27 years. Yes. One of your specialty areas is certified Dementia Care Specialist, along with being certified instructor in everything from CPR to ADE, North Carolina Options Counselor for 10 years, and the titles go on. You're even a Tai Chi instructor, which is, it just becomes more impressive, especially when you look at your instructor training with Arthritis Foundation. You are really immersed into the world of aging and working with and caring for people. And I want folks to understand as I'm introducing you, is I'm doing that not to just highlight all of the things that you have credentials in, but to highlight your compassion and passion for what you do. Thank you for being here.
And thank you for having me. I'm excited about this today.
Absolutely. And I've known you for some time. This particular, I'm going to call it disease, or we could dial it in and say the numbers that I have read appears to be increasing as folks become older, and it's more focused in that area from maybe 60, 65 and older. Not to say other people can't get it, but there's a lot of folks that a lot of folks that folks are watching and listening today. You don't have to be the person that's getting older. The people that are caregivers, I want to talk about those. But first, let's dial in to what dementia is.
It is your brain dying. Your brain, and I'm not a neurologist, so this is going to be a little layman's terms as well. It's the brain losing connectivity. So I'm thinking we all know what the brain looks like, but it starts to deteriorate inside. So your neurons and all those high-tech words, they don't fire like they used to, and we forget, and we just don't remember that we were doing something. We forget people, words, daily activities. And of course, our reasoning skills is not what it was. So, for lack of better words, our brains look like a juicy, plump grape, and folks with dementia, and I'm going to use Alzheimer's as an example because that is not just dementia. Alzheimer's is not the only dementia, but if you at the end, if you were to look at a brain from someone who has Alzheimer's opposed to a person who does not, there's a lot of gaps and holes in that brain. So there was nowhere for them to be able to think like they used to. And those are simple. It's a simple explanation. Yeah.
So with dementia, does it start out gradual, or does somebody all of a sudden go, wow, I just, forgot not only my car keys, but I forgot I had a car?
It can be both.
So it could be either. So it could be gradual. All of a sudden you just have a major impact.
Absolutely. Typically, the family, the caregiver, the loved one, they'll start noticing little things, and then they'll brush it under the rug. They're either getting older, they're stressed out, or whatever. And then it will gradually get worse and then it will keep on until they're in full blown and they're like, oh my goodness, they're crazy, or why won't they remember this? Or, I mean, just tons of stuff. It's not their fault. They just don't understand that this person is not the person that they knew that was on top of things. I have a family member who, she was an engineer her whole life, and she's retired. She designed a tiny, the little pieces in our cell phones, the little, I don't even know what they're called, but that she would have all these screens, and she was the designer of from the beginning to the end of them. And one day, after she retired, there was something she couldn't do. Long story short, she has Alzheimer's now.
Wow.
And smart as a whip. So, and I have other folks who, a nurse who was on top of it with finances, who could tell you exactly what was wrong with I mean, she had nursed for years, and all of a sudden one day it just changed, and she has vascular dementia. And I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself, but sometimes doctors can tell you what kind of dementia it is, and sometimes they cannot. A lot of times it will be through a lot of testing, psychiatric testing, neurological testing, whatever the doctor requires. And sometimes they can tell you what kind you do have, and then sometimes they cannot.
I understand also that under that term dementia, not only Alzheimer's, but also Parkinson, for example, is a type of dementia. So to your point, the umbrella term is dementia, but these categories under there, we might not necessarily associate it, but it is part of the dementia cycle.
So Parkinson's itself, someone could have Parkinson's and never have dementia.
Right.
It just depends on, and again, I'm not the doctor, what happens with that person during their Parkinson's journey. And it could affect them to a point that would cause them to have dementia. Now, I don't know how that happens, but you've got, and these are just a few, but you've got Parkinson's dementia, Lewy body dementia, frontotemporal dementia, at which Bruce Willis has the frontotemporal dementia.
Yes, the actor.
Yes. And you've got, oh my goodness, you've got, I'm missing vascular, Alzheimer's, Lewy body, frontotemporal. You've got drug-induced dementia. You've got alcohol-induced dementia. You've got all these other diseases that you can have that can cause dementia. And sometimes having a UTI can mimic someone who has dementia, although it is not, and they get in there, they get that fixed because it messes with the chemistry of your brain.
Wow. So anything that affects or disturbs the ability of the brain to fire the neurons, connect with each other, could be part of a dementia cycle.
Yes, absolutely. And depending on the dementia, sometimes the symptoms are different. So someone who has, say, frontotemporal dementia, their issues are more social and conversation issues, and someone with Alzheimer's, maybe theirs is completely short-term is gone, but they can remember what they did when they were 12, February the 12th at 9:30 in the morning. And it just, someone with Lewy body may be more aggressive. Someone with vascular may hallucinate more. It just really depends on the person, actually. Yeah.
When the people that you're seeing in our rural landscape, what typically do you see more of? What particular type of dementia? Does it cover the entire board?
Yes, it does. There's not one certain dementia that we see over another. And a lot of times the family, they don't know. Everybody wants to call it Alzheimer's, but it may not be. I do encourage testing. I do encourage a neurologist, although our doctors are great. But if you want to know what kind, maybe your loved one has the ability to go through that testing, and it's a lot. It is a lot for the testing.
Do they do like brain scans? Or?
That brain scans, MRIs, EKGs, they'll go through a psychological test with a psychiatrist as well, because I couldn't even begin to tell you, but there's a list of things they go over to determine what your issue might be. Now, if someone is extremely elderly and frail, of course not. I would never suggest that. But I know in my own personal life, it was very important to us to have that testing done because our loved one was so young. And I even met someone about 6 months ago. Her husband was only 51. Wow. Whenever he was diagnosed. And of course, so she had the testing done for her husband. So sometimes it's worth it and sometimes it's not. Either way, knowing what kind you have and what kind you do not is important to love that person unconditionally. The caregiver's life is going to change forever until they transition, pass away, whatever you want to call it. But there's not a certain kind that I'm seeing over another.
The interesting thing is that what I'm hearing you say is that it could be people that live in rural areas. It could be people that live in urban areas. And some of the statistics I've looked at, it's like a broad range of impacts. There seems to be, unless you're aware, no particular driving force other than some of the things that you mentioned a while ago that may have be contributors to it, which would be substance use and those kinds of things. When we come back from this break, I want to kind of dig a little bit deeper from your experience level and talk about some of the things that you have seen, the way people have acted. And definitely, at some time in the show, we're going to get into caregiving and let you talk about what folks need to be prepared for. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned.
Computer viruses, malware, and ransomware are out there. They're dangerous, and they can steal your identity and damage your equipment. Star Communications is now offering Protect IQ. The service adds an extra layer of protection to every device connected to your network, working quietly in the background. Star can help you protect yourself from the inside out with Protect IQ. Call Star today and take advantage of this free service when you sign up for whole home Wi-Fi with Star Communications.
How can your friend save you money? It's easy. Refer a relative, coworker, neighbor, or friend to Star Communications. Friend signs up for high-speed internet service. Friend's new account is confirmed. Friend gives your name to our service representative as the one who referred them to Star. You receive a $30 internet credit. It's just that simple. And even better, receive a $30 internet credit for every referral that results in a new confirmed account. High-speed internet from Star Communications. Refer a friend today.
Welcome to Cork and Brew Roseboro, where you can enjoy your favorite coffee, fraps, smoothies, bakery items, sandwiches, and select beer and wines while reconnecting with friends and family. Sit down and enjoy the experience. Come on by and give us a try.
When we're connected, American communities thrive. And as the internet connects more Americans to education, healthcare, and jobs every year, access to robust and reliable broadband is more important than ever for rural communities. For over 30 years, the Universal Service Fund has enabled affordable, high-quality connectivity for Americans across the nation, no matter how small or remote the community. This federal fund allows families the independence to live, work, and thrive in their communities. improves healthcare outcomes with greater access to information and telehealth options, gives children the education they need for a bright future, allows the start and growth of local businesses, which creates jobs that provide financial stability and strengthens economies on both a local and national scale. With the Universal Service Fund, we are expanding and sustaining connectivity for all through broadband built to last. Because when we're connected, America thrives.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know It's on there. I'm J.W. Simmons, your host. The show comes to you on Star Communications TV, simulcast on WCLN Radio. And we're talking about a subject today that could possibly be something you may be facing in the future. It may be someone you know, a loved one, or someone else that you know. But the subject is dementia. And dementia, Angela Faircloth, and you are a certified person in this field. You've been doing it for quite a few years. Mm-hmm. You see it on a first-hand basis with a lot of people. Let's continue that conversation about some of the kinds of things you're seeing and the symptomatic issues. And then I want to kind of move the conversation to the denial part. Okay. So what are you seeing from or hearing from people when they call you? And obviously, you know, that's Department of Aging. That's what that door opens to. So when they call you, what is some of the things that you're hearing from folks?
Initially, when people call, they are so lost and terrified because mama or daddy or husband and wife has been this way. Now things are changing. And a lot of times they've already gotten the diagnosis of dementia. They might not know what kind. And their emotions are all over the place. What do I do? How do we fix this? There's no fix. So what I do is I help them try to figure out what their highway is getting ready to look like, what their journey is getting ready to look like, because their loved one is not going to get better. I don't care what medicine they take. I don't care what diet they're on, what exercise class they take. Those are great things, don't get me wrong, but there's no cure. So what I try to do is help them to learn what they're getting ready to face so we can help them change, because their loved one they don't have any control of what's going on with their brain. So they're going to just do the best they can. So that's what we do. I do an assessment, figure out what their situation is, you know, what their lifestyle is, what their, support system looks like, you know, their connection with their doctor. We just go over so much so I can help the caregiver, whomever it may be, educate them on what they're needing to change.
Does a person need to think about, and you mentioned something, I want to try to get this in, about a medical doctor versus a psychiatrist or psychologist, or is both of those professional backgrounds important in looking at and dealing with this process as it moves forward? And again, the other thing is I think is so important, I want to underline that you mentioned that there's no known at this time cure for this chronic, debilitating brain disease.
Yes, it is very sad. And if I have a tear, you'll have to excuse me,
sad.
Because
we all probably need to.
Yes, it is very sad. There is absolutely no cure. Now you can get medication. The doctor can prescribe you some medication to help a person be at ease. There may be some memory medication early on that you could catch that may help out a little bit. But as far as a cure for dementia, there's not a cure. And that's not Angela's words. So, the doctor, you've got your family doctor, you've got the psychiatrist doctor, you've got the neurologist doctor. They're all all play a different role. You're depending on the assessment between you and your family doctor, they will decide whether you need a referral to a neurologist. Then the neurologist can do, and this is not for everyone, then the neurologist can do an assessment, and maybe they think you need testing to find out what kind you have. And if that's the case, then you have, all the testing with a neurologist, then a test with a psychiatrist, and then back to the neurologist. But not everybody's going to go through that. It really just depends on where you are in your dementia journey.
So when I hear you say that, the folks that call you are there more people calling you that are family or friends that notice it in people, or do you get an equal number of calls from people that notice it in themselves and then reach out to you?
That's very rare. That is very rare. What I typically get is the caregiver.
Gotcha. Somebody that's really just kind of confused here. What's going on? And what do I do? And how can you help me?
And they want it fixed.
How does the word denial fall into this conversation, Ange?
Well, a lot of times, and let me use, I'm going to use a loved one of my own. Their person that they're caring for is, has dementia. The family knows it. The caregiver is terrified, and they think that they can talk them into remembering, but they cannot. And they won't listen. It's not their fault. They can't reason. You can't reason with anyone with a cognitive issue. And it keeps on, and it keeps getting worse, and it keeps getting worse. That person wants to believe that they will get better, but they will not. And so living in that denial only hurts that caregiver. What the caregiver needs to just learn, and that's where my education workshops come into play, to help them to learn that their loved one is not going to get better, and they are the ones that have to change to be able to coincide and to keep moving forward with their loved one with dementia. But denial is it is not a pretty place to be in. Admission, yes, my loved one has dementia, that's power, because then you know how to move forward with it.
That's almost like if you have a substance abuse issue or what have you, or alcohol issue, you go to Alcoholics Anonymous, you go somewhere, and you can't really benefit from treatment anyway, but you can benefit from treatment in some way, at least if you acknowledge what you're dealing with.
Absolutely, because then you know what to do. Then, because I have friends and loved ones that call and say, hey, Angela, I need you to take off the friend hat and put on the dementia hat. And this is the information I need. Or they'll call and say, hey, I need you to take off the dementia hat and I need my friend right now. So there's lots of different pieces that the caregiver is going to go through that they need help with A to Z. Sometimes they need a friend. Sometimes they need a pastor. Sometimes they need the neurologist. Sometimes they need education. Okay, this is what I'm going through. How do I handle it? And there's and I may be getting ahead of myself, but there is a list called the 10 absolutes. Absolutely what to do and what not to do. And I can spend an hour just on those 10 absolutes, letting people know this is what you don't want to do for a person with dementia. This is what you can do. And it is a gift you will give yourself. The 10 absolutes of caregiving, and this is through the Dementia Alliance of North Carolina. We never argue. Instead, we always agree. Never reason, instead divert. Never shame, instead distract. Never lecture, instead reassure. Never say remember, instead reminisce. Never say I told you, instead repeat and regroup. Never say you can't, instead find out what they can do. Never command or demand. Instead, ask and model. Never condescend. Instead, encourage and praise. Never force, instead, reinforce. Because we try to fix everything, we try to control it, and we try to make it better. And the only thing we can do is change ourselves.
Absolutely. So what a great point. Mm-hmm. So when you look at your phone call log and you look at all the calls you get over the past, say, 4 or 5 years, has those calls increased radically? And without putting a finite percentage on it, has it increased so much that it's got to be a huge demand on you? Mm-hmm. Is that something that, as far as the county needs to look at in funding, that futuristically there's going to need to be more support? Oh, absolutely. Because this disease, unless there is a cure, it's just going to keep getting worse, and it's going to be more rampant. It is. You know, I talk to criminal justice people and emergency responders oftentimes, and they'll tell me about the big word that they call it is like welfare checks. Mm-hmm. You know, somebody didn't answer the phone. The light was on all night. And, you know, they were afraid that their neighbor, they didn't want to get in their neighbor's business, but could you check on them? Mm-hmm. And they do that. And sometimes they find a dementia person. Mm-hmm. This is so traumatic, and this kind of information, as I told you, I just feel compelled that we need to get out there and help folks with it. Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up. Those welfare checks are wonderful. They are absolutely wonderful because we have, and it's scary, we have folks who are living with dementia who do not need to be living by themselves. Mm. There is APS that can be called in reference to that. Mm-hmm. And they have their list of things they have to go through. But it is okay for folks who have dementia to live by themselves if they're early on or if they're functionable. Yeah. But if they're not, it is very dangerous for them to live by themselves. They could put something on the stove and not even realize they've done it. Mm-hmm. Leave the doors wide open. Take their medicine when they shouldn't be taking medicine. Mm-hmm. So I do encourage caregivers when I talk to them, be mindful. If they can live by themselves, that's awesome. But let's just be mindful what is actually going on in their home, at what stage they might be. And I hated to use that word stage. I shouldn't have, because people say, well, what stage are they at? Who knows? Yeah, because we don't ever know. It's just where they are in their dementia journey. We're going to take a break. When we come back from this break, I want folks to kind of call a friend, tune in, hit your record button or whatever, because they're going to want to know a lot about this. And this is that whole area of what is, quote, the requirements for being a caregiver, and are you prepared for being a caregiver? Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're talking a very critical medical issue that's facing our society today, and you may be looking at it. It's called dementia. We'll be back in a moment.
At Fisher's, it's not just about fashion. It's about exceptional service. Experience top-notch customer care and find your perfect look. Visit Fisher's today and feel the difference. Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home, so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
If you run a business, you need sales. To get sales, you need customers. To get customers, you need exposure. Let our team of experts craft and produce the perfect video ad to reach your intended audience while making the most of your advertising dollars. Call 1-800-706-6538 or visit starcom.net to contact our Star Communications production team and get your business moving to the next level.
The average American household has 17 devices connected to the internet. With more and more devices able to get online, you may need to increase your internet speed. Call Star Communications today and let us help you select the package that's right for you.
Gentlemen, welcome back. J.W. Simmons here. The name of the show is We Should Know. We're talking with Angela Faircloth, the Department of Aging, also a specialist when it comes to the area of dementia, of which, Angela, we've been talking quite a bit about for the first half of the show. I want to zero in now, if we can, and there's so much here. You know this, and I know this. We talked off camera about it. We will not get everything in. So we're hitting the key points for folks. The whole point that I think is probably profoundly important is the caregiver component of dealing with a loved one, a family member. It could be a neighbor. It could be someone you know. It could be a church person. Mm-hmm. And we all have church people that have a problem. And how do we, as an individual family member, as a neighbor, as a family person, how do we and what should we be looking at as a caregiver?
That's like jumping in a bouncy house full of all these balls and you're just in there floundering
You're going to
around.
get hit with it.
You're just going to get hit with it. Yeah. I go nowhere, absolutely nowhere, that someone is not a caregiver with a loved one with dementia.
Wow.
Absolutely. I can literally go to a coffee shop or where I can hear conversations and you know exactly what they're talking about.
You could probably see somebody at a coffee shop that maybe has a loved one there and know what the situation is.
Oh, absolutely. Because, well, you're absolutely right. And I love it whenever the caregivers take their loved one out in the community and still socialize. Because they're still human beings.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, it just makes my heart so happy.
Particularly happy that person has a caregiver that loves them enough they're willing to do that.
Absolutely, 100%. And there are cards that I do get from Dementia Alliance of North Carolina. It says, and I'm paraphrasing, please, the one with me or the person with me is suffering from cognitive issues, blah, blah, blah. And you can politely slide those cards to people when you're in a group of folks, and they'll know if they've not been around anyone with dementia, so they'll know what the caregiver is dealing with. And it is so helpful, so helpful. But as a caregiver, anybody, because dementia is so rampant and because it can strike anyone, I don't care if you make $9 billion a year or $9,000 a year. It is not prejudice. Dementia is not prejudice over man, woman, or race. The caregiver could be me. It could be you. It could be the lady across the street. It could be the lady at McDonald's. It could be the lady at the White House. A caregiver is thrown into it, so there's no credentials, there's no planning, there's no preparation, there's no class you can take until you have been put in that situation. And that's where our family caregiver program comes in. Right. We have support groups. And if people can't make support groups here, all they have to do is call me. I'll do a workshop for them. I'll set up a support group with them if they want me to. Whatever I can do to educate people and to educate the caregiver so they can have some peace of mind and they can sit down and take a breath, because their breath is going to be taken. Mm.
One of the things that strikes me when we just said that, I want to tap in on this. One of the things I'm aware of, and you are, and I'm very pleased to say this, is in our landscape, in particularly in eastern North Carolina, you could say in North Carolina as a whole, you do not have to go far before you see a church steeple. Is the churches, is this something that the churches should look at to kind of educate their congregation?
Absolutely.
And have folks like you or others to come in to explain what this is. Many people I talk to, and I love talking to church people. So saying goes, RA church people. Yeah. So when you look at that, it just seems to me that's a way to get the message out. If you see this problem, if you're having this problem, do not be judgmental.
Absolutely.
Show compassion.
Mm-hmm. We all need to be a dementia-friendly community. And matter of fact, today's Friday. Next Wednesday, the 12th, we are having a Dementia Friends Community Workshop at Department of Aging. Anybody can call and I can give them the information. And it just teaches communities how to be dementia friendly. Mm-hmm. And noticing it in our churches, doing workshops in our churches because they're on every corner. And I'll go anywhere to do a workshop. It is, because churches are typically community-based anyway, so they know who's in their community. Absolutely. And that way they can support the community even more and the caregiver. And it may look different for each community. Some communities may need the churches or the friends to come do yard work. Some may need, hey, can you come stay with my loved one and let me go to the doctor and to the grocery store for a couple of hours? It could be simply sitting down and reading the Bible with them. It just, whatever your community looks like, but let's get our feet wet. Let's help others as we were put here on this earth to do. And it, just because it's dementia and not another disease, we're supposed to be here for all of them and to help them. So let's educate all of our communities. What can we do for our caregivers and the ones suffering with dementia? Because I have the ones who have the disease who will come to my office as well. And I give them my time and I listen to them. And that's all they want.
So you can literally look at this from a huge telescope, or you can look at it with a microscope, but the same results, the same destination is there. This person is gradually dying in front of your eyes, and you see the disposal of that human body, but it's starting with the brain.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And typically folks who do pass away with dementia, it's not that their body, but that part of the brain, say that part of the brain told the heart to stop beating. Yeah. Because your brain, it
controls everything.
Everything. Every single thing in your body. Mm-hmm.
So, Angela, if you can kind of help us a little bit with understanding not only about the caregiving part of it, but you mentioned something earlier in the other part of the show about the time that the decision needs to be made that this person cannot be alone, which is a critical juncture for people, which oftentimes involves estate planning. Of course, social services oftentimes has to be engaged. This is something that over time, and a lot of people plan early on, which is a great thing, but there's that critical moment. There's that moment that people that love someone will be there probably to exhaust them. And all of a sudden they'll discover, I can't do this, because oftentimes that person that has dementia don't even know who they are.
Right. Yeah. Like what I was saying earlier, folks with dementia can live by themselves. But when they get to a point that they are dangerous for themselves, then the caregiver has to decide, am I moving my loved one in with me? Am I moving in with my loved one, or are we going to talk about placement? Now, regardless of how bad the dementia is, 9 times out of 10, the loved one does not want to talk about placement. But let me tell you, don't put placement aside, because that's a very important thing, because stress will kill you. And being a caregiver of a loved one with dementia, and you've got this same person you've known for years, but it's not that person anymore.
Right.
and you are stressed out, you have a family of your own, you're working, there's so much going on, don't discard placement, because there are some really good memory care facilities that love on their folks with dementia. And you can still go see them. You can still be with them. Now, I have family members who are adamant. They will die themselves before they put their loved one in a facility. I respect that. That's their choice. But just don't discard placement, because it will get to a point that it is too dangerous for them to be by themselves. And then you have to make those hard decisions. What are we going to do? And I do encourage, backing up a bit, I do encourage all caregivers, when stuff like this is noticed, let's go ahead. Let's work on that living will. Let's work on the power of attorney if you don't already have it. Because that will save a lot of headache later on.
The idea behind the planning part is not only essential, but sometimes it's critical, because you do have to have some kind of control of assets, and there is a limited amount of assets that's there because again, the government is one of these organizations that it's all or nothing with them, you know, so you have to deal with that. There are folks that have financial assets in which they've got insurance on this person, but at the same time, it's hard for folks, from what I've listened to and observed, to really do what you said, and that's give up that person. You've known these people, and I want to touch on this when we come back from this break, but they will be there, and they would literally give their life before that loved one is going anywhere, and the loved one don't even know who they are. And that's what just blows me away. So when we come back, I want to touch on that. I want to get into some of the final things that we need to, because it's going to be the last segment. But I want folks to really understand, more than anything else, is that Angela Faircloth is there for them.
Absolutely.
And we're going to give them that number. You got the certification, credentials, experience, guidance, contact information. It's a wonderful thing to just have you as an asset. And I want folks to understand that you're there. So we're going to take this break, kind of a quick break, come back, and then get focused on that last part of the show. And I don't want to leave anything out that you've got on your list.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned. Call a friend. We'll come back to the last part of the show with Angela Faircloth. We'll be back in a moment.
When we're connected, American communities thrive. As the internet connects more Americans every year, access to robust and reliable broadband is more important than ever for rural communities. The Universal Service Fund enables affordable, high-quality broadband, improves healthcare outcomes with access to telehealth options, gives children the education for a bright future, and allows business growth and job creation. The Universal Service Fund is expanding and sustaining connectivity for all, because when we're connected, America thrives.
Providing fewer commutes, more backyard offices, and crystal clear meetings. Providing less, you froze up, and more presence in your presentations. Providing a better internet experience. Providing possible.
At the Reedy Mark, we take pride in a unique, distinguished customer experience. We specialize in handcrafted cocktails, allocated bourbons, as well as gourmet signature food items exclusive to our menu at the Reedy Mark in Roseboro.
Hey guys, Sydney and Jesse here from At the Table.
Are you enjoying the show?
We want to hear from you. We have a quick survey where you can tell us things you've learned, recipes you've tried, and how the show has impacted you. You'll be entered into a grand prize drawing. Check out our link or scan the QR code for more info.
Thank you for tuning in and cooking with us at the table.
Ready to start fresh? Continue your journey? Or explore something entirely new? At Sampson Community College, we're here to help you begin here and go anywhere. With flexible schedules, affordable tuition, and programs designed for your success, there's no better place to reach your goals. Registration for Fall 2025 is open March 31st through April 17th. Expand your horizons today. Sampson Community College, Your future starts here.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us today. We're coming up on the last part of the show. We're talking with Angela Faircloth. She's a specialist with the Department of Aging, particular area of interest for her, and has credentials and certifications is dementia. Dementia is a big word with a lot of different things under it that impacts the human brain. Angela's done a great job in kind of defining dementia for us today. We've got so much stuff we wanted to talk about, and some of your certifications that I wanted to get into. We're going to try, if we can, to touch on it, but I want to stay on this theme of dementia here and get to that core of the caregiving thing. When we went on break, you talked about when to not necessarily give up your loved one, but to give that loved one a better environment, and what timing and how that timing is important.
So our caregivers being thrown in the dementia world, mm-hmm. it is no different than throwing somebody in a swimming pool who can't swim. Mm-hmm. And they don't know what to do. They want to keep their loved one with them, but they don't understand the impact that it's going to take on their life unless you've got, unless you're living in this ginormous house with 50 family members in there, which is, I've never heard of it. Right. The caregiver is going to burn out very quickly. Mm-hmm. And caregiver burnout, just so everyone knows, is a real thing. Stress will kill you.
Absolutely.
And I know we want to take care of our loved ones. So when it comes to that point where something needs to be done, you've got to have an extremely supportive support staff, mm-hmm. A non-judgmental support staff, because we have to respect everyone's decisions. Now, I can talk to my caregivers all day long about this is what's going on, this is what's going to happen, this is that. But my focus really is think about what you're going through, your symptoms of your health already as it is. If you're going to keep your loved one, which 9 times out of 10, that's what they do, let's go over a few things that can help you to continue. Because when it gets to the point that your loved one can't live by themselves anymore, you're either going to move them in with you or vice versa, or placement. Mm-hmm. And placement, you still need to know a few things as well, but you know they're going to have 24/7 care. And if they're with you, then you're the one that's going to have to do it or make arrangements for that to happen. Now, with the family caregiver program, I can provide some respite. You just have to call me. And there are other programs that can provide respite as well. So I don't want any caregiver to think that they are by themselves, because they are absolutely not. There's somebody on the street corner that's in your same shoes. You just don't know about it because everybody's afraid to talk about it for whatever reason. We're not afraid to talk about other diseases. So why not talk about dementia?
Exactly.
So, my goal is, when I do am involved in connection and have met the caregiver, let me teach you how to handle what you're going through a lot easier.
Because if they're not good to themselves, they can't be good to their...
Oh, absolutely not. That's why respite is so important. You can do respite at the adult day center. You can have someone to come in to give you respite. It's very important. And just because you ask for help does not mean you're less of a person. It means you're smart.
That's right.
The biggest thing is that your loved one who has dementia is always right. That is the problem.
Do not argue with them.
No, you don't argue. They're always right. And we have to figure out how to handle that. Because again, like we said earlier, we want to fix everything. We can't fix it. We can't make them understand. We can't make them remember what they just did. So how are we going to be able to be more of sound mind? We can ask for that respite, ask for that neighbor, ask for that family to give us some help. We can go to a Tai Chi class. We can go to the gym or just get out and walk. We can, pamper ourselves once in a while, and whatever that means to you. It could be going to the park and sitting in the swing.
Sure. It
could be having a picnic. It could be just by yourself.
Just decompress.
Decompress, absolutely. But when you understand you cannot reason with your person, so how can we make this work? So they're always right. And there's another piece is, if they get agitated or they're adamant about doing something, go in the back door instead of the front door and revert everything. And never tell them they can't do something, because there's always something that everyone can do. Maybe it's to go to the store and buy tons of socks and have your person to fold socks. My great aunt who lived in Virginia, she had worked at a grocery store her whole life. And when she got Alzheimer's, my cousin would go to work one day and she'd come back, every day, and the cabinets were redone. She was stocking shelves. There is something they can do.
That memory was triggered. And so they were repeating that replicable task.
Yes, absolutely. So never tell them that they can't do something. If they start talking about something that's bothering them, whatever that is, maybe there was a piece of paper on the counter that has just set them off. Ask them something that you know that was a positive in their life, of what they did with their loved one 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just whatever, to just change the conversation, because that's really all it needs to be. We do have workshops that do teach other pieces to caregivers to be able to handle the situation differently. You're going to go through a mourning stage because the one you knew does not exist anymore.
And continues to leave you gradually.
Exactly. They're dying alive.
The sad kind of thought of this, Angela, to me, is that you see that happening and you have to get through that stage, and I see people that's gone through this, they have to get through that stage in which they're blaming themselves because they're not doing more, or maybe they're blaming themselves because they don't understand, or they get mad with their patient, their person that's going through this, and they don't know what they're doing. So you have to, I think some people have to all of a sudden reflect. Hopefully what you're telling them today will help them understand they don't need to get themselves in a situation that they wish they had told their loved one how much they love them, even though their loved one may be in total denial and angry. They could still look at them and say, whatever you say, I still love you.
Oh, absolutely. And you just have to keep reminding yourself that's not the person I knew.
Exactly.
And they're going to get mad. Oh, they're going to get mad and
it just gets worse.
Yes. And you just love them through it. That's all we have to do is love each other through everything. Yes, we're talking about the dementia disease, or the dementia umbrella, but there's tons of umbrellas. But all we're required to do is to love them through it. And then I come along, Department of Aging comes along with our program, and we get to love on the caregiver and teach them how to let go.
And sustain.
And sustain themselves, absolutely. Because there's a lot of distracting we have to do. A lot of, our caregiver is adamant that we have a purple heart on our head. And you're like, okay, well, I'm sure it's very pretty.
Yeah.
And just slowly distract them. Change the subject. Let's go on. And there's another one too. A lot of folks, especially Alzheimer's, they want to go home. They want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go home. That doesn't mean necessarily that they want to go home. home to them in their mind is a safe place.
Exactly.
And if they're agitated and if something's just not right, they may say, I want to go home, I want to go home. We have to find out what that home means to them. It could be going home when they were 12. It could be going to be with mama. It could be, I want to be in my bed where I know I'm safe and comfortable, but they don't know how to verbalize it.
And that part of them understanding where they are is already gone.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that is, so it's like at some point in time, I hear you saying that that particular person, the caregiver has to accept they really don't know where home is.
They don't. And they don't necessarily, that's just what they use because they don't know how to express it any other way. So you just have to figure it out. And y'all, I cannot begin to tell you, please call me. I will walk you through it. I will love you through it. I will help you through it. I will not make anyone do anything, but I will educate you to help yourself, because that's what it's going to take. It's us helping each other as a community, not being in denial and realizing we have to change.
Angela, you've made some tremendously great points today. One of the things is what you just said, I think is important, because this show is going to go on. We're going to have somebody else on, but I wanted to remember your phone number. We're going to put that on the screen for them. You can go ahead and tell them the phone number now for the radio side if you want to.
910-592-4653.
4653, ladies and gentlemen, and be sure to call Angela Faircloth, a specialist in this subject. I'll give you about 10 seconds here, last word.
I just love all my caregivers. You're not alone. You are not alone. Call me. Let me help you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us today. Angela Faircloth can be reached at the number she just said. We're going to put it on the screen for the TV viewers. Hopefully, this will help you and help a neighbor, help maybe a church member or somebody that's going through this. Let's care for each other. And as Angela said, love one another. We'll be back next week, and may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.